hardware manufacturer Faderfox is back with some brand new products. Rane has updated the Rane 72 with some pretty cool new features, and Pioneer DJ is back with a brand new entry-level DJ controller for Rekordbox DJ. Find out more coming up. Thank you for watching PDot TV, where you'll find tips, tricks, and tutorials for DJs and music performers. Now let's get into the video. If you're around for the beginnings of computers being integrated into DJing, then the name Faderfox should ring a bell. This manufacturer has been there from the start, bringing small, portable MIDI controllers that could be hooked up to your computer for use with things like Traktor or more frequently Ableton Live. And these were used for a few reasons. Number one, they were pretty portable and modular, so you could get different kinds of Faderfoxes and make a setup that was just right for you. Number two, they were built really well, and that was really important because you didn't want to be spending a ton of money for something that was going to break, and these Faderfoxes were built to last, which was awesome. And number three, the way that they could be mapped to your DJ software of choice. Back then, there weren't very many MIDI controllers, especially MIDI controllers with the kinds of buttons, knobs, and faders that us as DJs needed, and Faderfox provided this kind of flexibility, with the DJ in mind. And now they're back with two new pieces of hardware, the MX12 and the PC12. Now these are natively mapped to the Electron line of products, and if you look at the size and shape of these new controllers, it makes sense. It really fits that Electron form factor, and also they're mapped to Ableton Live as well. So if you're an Ableton user and want something that's a little bit bigger and has more controls, these new Faderfoxes could be just the thing you're looking for. Now let's start with the MX12. You get 12 faders, 24 pots, and 24 buttons. Now where I could see this being useful is in a mixing desk kind of situation where you have your different faders set up to go through the volumes and go through the pans or whatever you want to have set up as far as your mixing desk situation is concerned. And with the buttons, you could have the fader set to different modes, so you could have volume, panning, maybe filters or effects racks, something like that. So you have flexibility there. And with the knobs as well, you have more control over different kind of parameters. So it can be very useful inside Ableton, as well as controlling all the other parameters with Electron products. Now with the PC12, you get 72 pots, meaning 72 knobs that you can have assigned to whatever you really need inside Ableton Live. And they also come pre-mapped, like I mentioned, to Electron products as well. Now I can see this being useful in a situation if you use a lot of effects racks with different tracks inside Ableton Live, and you want control over all of those different effects racks all in one controller in one place. With this amount of knobs, it's really easy to get so much control off of one device that can fit in, a laptop size kind of space on your setup. Rane has been making a lot of noise with their latest flagship mixer, the 72, and it looks like they're not stopping with updating this thing with even more features. They just released version 1.2 for the firmware for the 72, and it fixes some of the issues that I had with the mixer, as well as adding a couple new features as well. I went ahead and did a video that explained and walked through all the new features, so go ahead and find that video. I'll link it up in a card above somewhere around here, and I'll link it down in the description below. So if you own a Rane 72 and you haven't updated yet, you definitely have to update and upgrade this mixer with those brand new features. It really makes this mixer a little bit more usable and just a lot more fun to play with. And finally, Pioneer DJ recently announced their latest entry-level Rekordbox DJ controller. They're calling it the DDJ-400. Now this kind of looks like the same form factor as the previous, RB line that they had, which was a kind of a copy of their old Serato entry-level mixers, but it's mixed in with some of the DNA that you found in the higher flagship level DDJ-1000. Now if you look at this controller, it really feels like it's somewhere in the middle of those two, and I really like the way they laid this thing out. It still maintains that smaller footprint of those older entry-level controllers, but the overall look and feel of it really feels like a smaller version of a flagship setup. So the first thing you probably notice on this controller is that the mixer section of this controller really mimics the DJM setup, and it really looks sort of like a smaller controller size DJM 250 in that regards. Instead of having the effects be on the tops of the two decks, you now have the effects on the actual right side of the mixer section with an on-off button and beats and depth knob, just like you would find on all the other range of the DJM mixers. And you also get the Q buttons in the place you would find them on all the DJM mixers as well. And I really like this because it really will help DJs, you know, make the jump from using a controller like this to using the flagship setup of the DJM 900 Nexus with the DDJ-400s. Because if you're coming from this, where everything's kind of in the right place, making that jump to a bigger setup will feel a little more natural. And to go along with that, they really reworked the deck section as well to really mimic the CDJ. First, the biggest thing that stood out to me was the fact that they made the platters really look like the platters on the CDJ lineup instead of being the controller-like platters that we've seen in the past. You have the kind of coloring and dimples that you find on the CDJ platters, so working on these, even though they're smaller, will feel a lot more comfortable when you make the jump to CDJs. Also, they've also moved the pitch fader. Previously on these, entry-level controllers, we've had the pitch fader at the top section, but that really doesn't match what you see when you get to, the flagship setup. So they've actually lowered that, put it towards the bottom where it's, usually found on all the CDJs. It's not a full-length pitch fader, but it looks like a decent size, and I really like that the placement is there because it'll get your hands trained to where they need to be when you make the jump to a bigger controller or to a flagship setup. And along with the changes to the placement of the pitch fader, we now have, instead of the effects sections above the decks, we now have the looping controls as well as memory cue point controls right there on top, just like you would find on the DDJ-400s as well. Now, you don't get a lot of output options as this is an entry-level controller. You really just get RCA outs with a headphone output as well. So you're really not, getting much there. But then again, this is an entry-level controller, and for the price of $250 right abouts, you do get a full license for Rekordbox DJ as well, and that's $130 value. So in actuality, you're paying, just about a little over $100 for this awesome entry-level controller that, will really get you in that Rekordbox ecosystem and get you ready to make the jump to a flagship setup down the line. So that's it for the news this week. So question today, what piece of hardware was your entry into the DJ world? Go leave that down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, if you found this video useful, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click right here to subscribe to this channel. Or if you'd like to watch more content, go ahead and click on that video right there. And thank you for watching PDot TV, where you'll find tips, tricks, and tutorials for DJs and music performers. See you next time.